Welcome to the Sustainable Success Show, where we share real-world ideas, strategies, and systems to help you build success that lasts in business and life. Each episode delivers practical insights you can apply immediately without burnout, chaos, or short-term fixes that don't scale. At the foundation is emotional intelligence and effective communication, how you lead yourself and how you connect with others across personalities, generations, and cultures, because that's where trust, engagement, and performance are created. I'm Christopher Salem, your host, and this is where sustainable success becomes your competitive advantage. Welcome to Sustainable Success. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Hope everyone is having a great week. We want to thank you listeners again for embracing our new format now this year. We've gotten rave reviews since we relaunched back in January of 2026 after being on the air with our old original format for almost 9 years. And again, if you are new at our show, this is all you know, but hey, you're in the right place because now you get to see us. Whereas in the past, it was strictly an audio-based show, but today you get to see not only our great guests, subject matter experts we have on, but also myself. And we can't be more than happy to welcome our new listeners. And we encourage you to check us out also on YouTube at Christopher R. Salem, as well as Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and iHeart. There you can subscribe to any of those channels to listen to this show each and every week, or any of the shows that we've had over the last 9 years. Yes, we've had over 500 episodes for this show. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Before we start, again, we also encourage you to check us out on Facebook at Sustainable Success 2017. You could also follow us there as well. Well, I am so excited today. We're going to be talking about Ignite Your Spark. Yes, for those out there that are looking to really tap into the positive aspects, even if you're going through a negative situation or dealing with negative people, you are going to be in the right place and how you can use positive intelligence to ignite your spark. We are here with Todd Bertsch, and Todd has been, started his career way back in 1995 in graphic design, and, since then had, worked and started a digital marketing agency that evolved into marketing back in 2009. And he has just done a lot of great things in that space. But it was back in 2021 where he had an enlightening moment where he came into contact about the concept of positive intelligence. And it was through this that it changed the direction of not only his life, but his business and his commitment to help leaders really ignite their spark. And he's also a member of the National Speakers Association in Ohio. As everyone knows here, me being a professional speaker, I'm a national member, and it's always great to have other NSA members on our show. And without further ado, we welcome Todd Bertsch to the show. Todd, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So, Todd, we always like to start off with a little bit, maybe going into the backstory of, what led up to your involvement in positive intelligence and how you're using this today in all aspects of helping leaders, from marketing to leadership development, team development, so on. If you could share with the listeners.
Yes, absolutely. So like many, Chris, during COVID, I know we don't want to go back to that time, but it was a crazy time for all of us. But I had an opportunity at that point to go down a couple different paths. Like many of us, like you, we had a pre-call about this. Networking, connecting with people is what really lights me up. And during COVID, obviously there wasn't much of that. Maybe you had a little bubble and that was it, and we did as well. And it was difficult. It was really difficult. So interesting enough, I had been posting some things on LinkedIn. I've always been pretty active on there, and a coach saw one of my posts and reached out to me. I didn't know her, and she said, "Hey, I want to tell you about this program called Positive Intelligence." And I'll be honest, Chris, I was a little, well, let's say not a little, a lot skeptical about
Yeah.
this program, and seemed a little kind of woo-woo, a little out there for me. But she caught me at a great time because I had really started to go down this path of holistic change. And it started with sleep. I don't know if you can see this here, but this is the Aura Ring, if anybody's
Yes.
looking to track their sleep. So I started with sleep, and then I looked at kind of all the aspects, the holistic, mentally, physically, my diet, I went gluten-free. But anyhow, all that to say that she reached out, she told me about this program. I said, "Hey, what do I have to lose at this point?" And I'll be honest, Chris, this program changed my life. It literally changed my life, the way that I live, the way that I lead, and my business for the better. And this program is all about mental fitness. And I didn't know anything about mental fitness. And yeah, I was familiar with EQ, right? So a lot of us are. And positive intelligence obviously has some of that rooted inside of it, but positive intelligence is all about building that mental muscle. And just like you would go to the gym, Chris, and work out and build your muscles, you're building your mental muscle through doing exercises, repetition. And eventually, if you stick to it, you're laying down new neural pathways. You're rewiring your brain. It's absolutely crazy how plastic our brains are. So I actually rewired my brain. And the problem for me, Chris, was, and maybe you can relate, or maybe some of your listeners, but I had no space. I had no pause, right? So I was a very reactionary person. I had little to no patience my entire life. I had a temper. So I would go from 0 to 10 like that.
I could relate to that back in the day.
Right? And that's not a way to live, definitely not a way to lead, right? And as a parent, not a way to parent. And that hindered me my entire life. And I was able to kind of force my way through and get into management and start my own company. But I just wasn't the leader, the person that I was really meant to be, and that I wanted to be. And this program allowed me, really, what it did was it created freedom. I wasn't controlled by my temper or the little to no patience I had. So now I'm able to just pause. Nothing affects me. Nothing bothers me. I just come in, pause. I'm in this, excuse me, this calm, cool, collected manner. And I may respond, I may not. But I'm not judging. I'm not assuming. And I'm just opening the conversation and listening. And that's a heck of a way to run a business, lead, and just live in general. So that was kind of the impetus. And I love this program. I took my leadership team through this program, and I saw that shared language that we had internally and how it really changed the landscape of our business. And then I decided to be a coach. And now I'm taking this out into the corporate environment, taking, teams, leadership, or middle management through this program. And it's really amazing, Chris, to see somebody at the beginning, and it's only an 8-week program, and see how much they change at the end of those 2 months. It really is inspiring.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for that, your transparency sharing, because I can relate to that 100%, going through a similar journey many, many years ago and rewiring my mindset to think differently, because I was also a king reactor, very little patience, operated from anger every day of my life, struggled with 12 years of addiction as a result to cope with the anxiety and stress. But it was learning how to control what I can control and let go of what I can't control. And it was freedom when I realized it was just me. All I have to do is control myself. I'm not responsible for controlling other people or situations. I just have to learn how to respond and know how to do that rather than react. So I love what you shared there. If you could walk us through some of the, key components of positive intelligence. And now that you are a product of the product because you had to work on yourself.
Yeah.
How you are now helping leaders through when you speak on stages, when you're out there working with them one-on-one or in groups. What is those primary components that start this process with positive intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes back. I'm going to take just one step back, Chris. back to a framework I created called the Spark Framework. And it's based on 5 key pillars, which is curiosity, mindset, action, growth, and impact. So the mindset piece is really all about kind of building that mental muscle, right? Being able to reframe challenges. And that's the core component of this program, is being able to come into any situation and find the gift and opportunity. That core concept right there changes your whole perspective. Imagine as a leader, as a parent, a coach, coming into any type of scenario and saying, you know what, I can find the gift here. It's there. You just have to be open and curious enough, right? And when you do that, you're leading from kind of a perspective of gratitude, of empathy, of positivity. So every single thing is going to have some positive outcome. And then you're growing, you're learning. So you're not being derailed. And that's really what mental fitness, whether it's positive intelligence or mindfulness practices, it really is about identifying and catching those negative thoughts and patterns in your head. They're pointing at you. Hey, Chris. Hey, Todd, don't do that. You're not good enough. Imposter syndrome. You'll never complete this. Don't start it. Right? The judge. We call those saboteurs. They're just in your head all day long. So understanding them, having the insight to understand who they are, we all have them, even me at mastery level, they never go away. It's about understanding what they do, but also taking advantage of the underlying strength, because there is an underlying strength there. It's just not letting it sabotage you. And that's where we all get down kind of this negative path, right? And we get derailed, and then we get reactionary, and we get upset, and our stress levels, elevate, and then we can't operate in a clear, calm manner. So we're doing and saying things that likely we regret, and we're not able to really manage conflict and deal with situations. And if you're, a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or manager or leader, that's the biggest challenge, is being able to come in. They say most leaders will rise to the occasion, but they drop right to habit. And if your habit,
they default back to those habits that invisibly get in their way each and every time.
Right. And if your habit is to react, then you elevate stress and everybody around you. If your habit is to pause, you regulate. And when leaders regulate, that creates stability.
Yeah.
And
so
growth,
true.
Right. So it's, that's really what the core thing is all about, is being able to identify, catch, and then shift from saboteur, from negative land, into what we call the sage brain, which is the right side of our brain, which is all about empathy, gratitude, peace, calm, creativity, right? Which side do you want to operate in? It's pretty obvious: survival brain or the sage brain, which is all about love. The core of that is love. And yeah, some listeners are saying, well, how do I apply this to work? Like love?
If you get the task oriented, dominant on the DISC profile kind of result, I don't, they're, because they lead with logic. But nonetheless, if you communicate it in a way that you can tie it to results and you get their buy-in, they might be likely now to adopt what you're sharing.
Oh yeah. And there are it's not a very popular program right now, because the owner, Shirzad Shamin, he doesn't really promote it. He relies on the coaches to go out there and promote it. But we have global companies, like Pepsi, Coke, Google, big Microsoft, that are going through this program, taking their teams through it, and they've bought into it. And it's all backed by neuroscience, years of neuroscience studied at Stanford and Yale. So it's legitimate.
I agree 100%, Todd. I think if companies would just give it the benefit of the doubt and commit on some level, even if it's a small level, and now you track it, right? Put KPIs on an individual team and level, and then even how that rolls up to the organization. And if they were to now look at the numbers and track that over time, if everybody were to commit, be accountable, own their role in it, you would see a huge difference in the KPIs. Retention would go up, engagement, efficiency, all of the above. You would see those things. But I think just a lot of companies, because they're so driven by numbers, they use it to check a box, and yet they don't really commit to using it and making it like a priority. Starting with the C-suite being part of it too, being an example and being a resource of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you brought up, Chris, and this is one of the kind of true differentiators of the program, is that you have DISC and Strength Finders and Myers, right? You have all these other and they're great. They have their spot, they have their place, but a lot of those are insight. And insight's great, but a lot of times insight doesn't lead to action, right? So it dissipates. Mental fitness, positive intelligence, or any other program builds mental muscle. You're building muscle, right? So that has a lifelong ROI if you stick to the program. That changes lives. That's the difference. We're actually rewiring our brain. And what's cool is, there's a huge benefit for companies bringing this in, because it's not just about performance at work. A lot of my people that I take through the program, they have a huge impact on their home life. And when your home life is good, that all trickles up to work, and you're good at work. So now you're happy, you're more engaged, right? You're going to stick around to the company because they've just invested in you as a person, and you're going to see better productivity, more creativity, more innovation, right? Taking more risks, getting out of your comfort zone, getting into this growth mindset. That's the winning formula. That's where people stick around and they produce their best.
Oh, it's so true. So true. And I hope, listeners, that you're taking notes. This is always valuable information, as you know, here on Sustainable Success, especially those that have been here. We always are committed to solutions, but we can't come up with solutions or opportunities without talking about the challenge. And always the challenge starts with the person, the subject matter experts who's sharing that, because they have personal experience from it. They've been in your shoes. They've done something about it. And now they're sharing what those opportunities and solutions can be to make those challenges better to get these results. This is why it's so important to not only hear what you're hearing, but let it process. Go back and listen to the show again to let more of it sink in. So Todd, if you could share, some insights, like, is there, like a certain process that you work when you work with a leader or even a team, depending upon what that would look like? Again, nothing proprietary you have to share, but just anything in general that you could share that could give the audience some spark here with your program, and where they can take that first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does go back to the Spark framework that I created. Yeah. And that is the 5 pillars that I mentioned. And it all starts with curiosity. That is the ignition point, right? That is the point where if we start to open ourselves up and not have that narrow perspective, the conversation changes dramatically. You start to build trust, and you're going to have a lot better collaboration with your team because you're not closed off. You're actually being interested instead of interesting, right? You're listening. You're opening it up and not saying this is all there is. I want everybody's opinion. So just asking better questions, that is the ignition point. And then you can start to fuel your mindset. And that's where building that mental muscle comes in, and being able to reframe and shift and find that gift and opportunity. Instead of saying, we use a game called the reframe game. Instead of saying, I have to, which you could, I have to, right? Look at my posture, my tone. We reframe it to, I get to, right? So instead of, I have to be on this podcast with Chris Salem today. Oh, it's me. It's Monday. I got the Monday blues. I get to talk with Chris, get excited about whatever we're going to talk about, maybe inspire some of his audience, so it's a shift in our mindset, and then finding the gift and opportunity. And then once we start to fuel that mind, then we can take the action. And here's where most people misstep, Chris, is they think that action has to be this huge, big, giant leap, right? No, it's all about sustainable growth is all about taking small, intentional, uncomfortable steps. That's sustainable growth. That's how you build momentum, right? Because you start to break something that maybe seems so inconceivable down into these smaller steps. You build confidence. And then once you build confidence, that stress, that fear lowers. And then you can start to build on that, right? And that's all through small intentional action. And once you do that, you start to see that growth. And that really is kind of your spark realized. That's all three of those first pillars in motion. And then I love the last piece is all about the impact, right? That is the light. That's the ripple effect. As leaders, as parents, coaches, that's not even, it's not about our privilege. It's a responsibility for us to light up others, right? To spread that light out to everybody that we serve. That's our role. We need to do that. Everybody should be lit up by something, or they're not going to stay in the role that they're in. That's the Spark framework, brother. That's how it works. I studied decades of psychological research, and I studied some of the top leaders globally, and this is the pattern that emerged. They all stayed extremely curious. They all took intentional action. They all built their mental muscle, and they started to see that growth happen, and then they spread that impact. It scaled.
You can see where when you stay curious, even when you're now doing things that you've never done before and they don't feel good and they might feel uncomfortable, you do it anyway, right? And it's where the consistency, where the discipline and consistency is what leads to that change. Otherwise, we default right back, like you said earlier, to those habits that don't serve us and obviously negatively impact the people around us. And I could say, yeah, like too many people are waiting for motivation. Well, one day when I feel like this is the right time, I'll make that commitment. It's like now, discipline and consistency just never lets you down. Any insight to that you could apply to your format, or if that's something you, yeah.
Oh man, I'm just itching over here to dig in. Yeah, you said one key word there, Chris, that I love is discomfort. And that's what this is all about. So I found this cat meme online. It says, there's two things I don't like, Chris: change and the way things are. Well, that kind of sums up life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Something's got to change. Something's got to change. So in order to change, oftentimes we don't embrace change because of the discomfort. It feels uncomfortable. And we as a society we're not accustomed to any discomforts. We regulate everything, right? Heating, cooling, we never experience any difference in temperature. Helicopter parents, magic pills for everything, no pain, no gain. We just don't experience it anymore. We're not accustomed to it. So it's labeled. When we see it, our survival brain says, hey, danger, Will Robinson, don't go there, right? So we need to rewire it. That's why people like Tony Robbins and others cold plunge every single morning, because you're rewiring your brain to say, hey man, this isn't danger. This is growth. It's okay. Go for it. So we can't grow if we're not experiencing a little bit of discomfort. We have to stretch out just beyond what we're capable of. That's when growth happens. And it's not easy. That is the hardest part of growth. But when you start to take some little habits to get there, and one trick that I say, Chris, is do something with your non-dominant hand. Just take a challenge. Brush your teeth. Wash your hair. Right, or if people still write anymore, write with your. You're doing something different. It's uncomfortable. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. And as silly as it may sound, you're actually rewiring your brain to say, hey, I'm doing something different. And it's not danger. It's okay. So anyhow, it's just a small tip, but I love it. Yeah, we have to embrace discomfort. It's part of the package, and it goes back to the old adage: no pain, no gain. But it doesn't really have to be painful. You just have to experience a little something different, and it's not
Right.
it's not motivational. It's not motivational.
Like you said before, it's a choice, and it's not like if you're not willing to change, because change can happen with or without you anyway, then you have to accept what is, and if you don't like what is, what's the greater of the two pains? Staying with what is or changing, and you got to make a choice, because if you don't, life's going to make a choice for you regardless.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And I just had somebody on my show she's a change management expert, and she was telling me about the Global Business Index. And they just put out a report that said there is a 180% rise in business disruption. We are living in the biggest time period of change disruption that we've seen in a long time. Change is here, right? It's here, it's happening. So you're either going to need to jump on board, get adaptable, or you're going to be left behind. And that's just it. That's where we're at. So think about change and think about really what it could do for you. At the end of the day, everybody's just saying, what's in it for me, right? That's what we all care. What's in it for me? Well, there's something in it for you. Think about the positivity, how it could help you from a health perspective to lower your stress. And what does that do? Because when I ask that question, everybody comes back to, what's most important to them? Family. So by embracing change, you inevitably are going to be healthier, which allows you to spend more time with your family, see your grandkids, watch your daughter walk down that aisle. It all comes back to the root, which is just seeing more family, having a great life. Well, we have to embrace change. There is something in it for you. You just have to be open and curious enough to ask that question. What if? What if I did that? It wouldn't be so hard. Maybe I might just grow. I might feel that dopamine hit. It's like, oh, this isn't so bad. This actually feels kind of cool. Yeah, because we crave growth. We crave change. We do. That's our DNA. It's how we're built to evolve. We just get comfortable over time. We get in that fixed mindset. And Chris, man, it is so easy to hibernate, not just in the winter, but all year. And that's not good.
Sit on the sidelines. Oh, yeah.
That's not good for anybody. Not good for you, your family, or your organization. So
absolutely. You got to trust the process, and you got to just keep moving forward one step at a time. And
one step at a time. And let me share it because you just said something. So there's a great story about Apollo 11 and NASA, and they broke down this big mission. How the heck are they going to land on the moon? So it wasn't through 1,000 steps, right? Or it wasn't through this big one giant leap. It was through 1,000 steps. You know what they call them, Chris? 1-inch wins.
1-inch wins.
They literally labeled it 1-inch wins. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Good for them. That's how they were able to accomplish this thing that none of us even thought imaginable.
Wow. Well, Todd, this has been just a wonderful information and insights, even sharing your personal journey, what got you to adopt and embrace positive intelligence, and utilizing this now in your Ignite, your Spark framework and what you do, helping individuals and teams. I wanted to make sure before we let you, I want you to share your contact information with the audience, what you're up to, anything you'd like to provide them. But first, we want to thank you personally for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today, not only for myself, but also from our team here at Sustainable Success. We want to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun, Chris, and I know you and I are going to continue the conversation, so absolutely. Anytime that I can talk about, positive intelligence or igniting your spark, I'm all about it. I'm happy to connect with people. I love meeting new people. You can find me at my website, toddbertsch.com. That's BERTSCH.com, or LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. So reach out, let's connect, and let's start a conversation.
Excellent. And we want to make sure that, again, everybody, all of Todd's contact information will also be in the show notes. That is either if you're at YouTube, Spotify, Apple, any of the areas that you access the show, all his contact information will be available there to connect. If for any reason you reach out to us, we'll also make sure to connect you directly to Todd since we have his information. So, Todd, thank you so much again for being here with us today.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success. We are committed, as always, to bringing in subject matter experts like Todd in to share their words of wisdom and insights to help elevate you and your business to the next level. We're all about the process that gets you to the results, not the results itself, because if you don't have a process, you don't have results. And it's all about embracing challenges, because by embracing them and owning them, we can now find opportunities with them to now create results. We encourage you again to follow us on the different distribution channels. And again, make sure to write a review if you enjoyed the quality of this show today. Make sure to write us a review, and also the same for Todd. And he also has a podcast, and we'll make sure to have that podcast also listed in the show notes. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Friday at 12 noon East Coast time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Take care.